letting the mind sift down into the body, sifting down and through the body. And as the mind sifts down through the body, it'll take tensions with it. So you can do that over and over again. You know, maybe like leaves drifting down. Something very natural, settling down. A mind, the line of your awareness sifts down through your body, taking toxins, tensions, weight with it. Resting the hands below the navel. We'll bring the heels in close to start with here. It's a little bit easier on the lower back and hips. A little extra knee bend so that lower back is straightened. As we start with some gentle hip turns. Releasing on each out breath. If you imagine you're still hanging out, that'll make a better gyroscopic motion and a better releasing down. If you don't have that quality, then I exaggerate. I mean, normally when people do hip circles, they're actually doing something like this. They're holding themselves up as they do the hip circles. And everything's bracing and tightening into the hip circles, especially the lower back. So it takes extra conscious awareness and decision to not let that happen. So hip circles, there's things tightening up. So hang the tailbone, lengthen the lower back. Remember, you're still hanging out. So it's like your pelvic girdle is a pendulum. So this is, your spine is the string, and the pelvic cage is that weighted stone or jewel at the bottom of the string. So your turning, swinging hip cage is just like a pendulum that's just swinging. So that's always dropping. So those knees will really bend, the lower back will straighten and flatten, lengthen. The shoulders and the spine won't be resisting or tightening into the move, they're actually being released. And then you're getting more of emotion through the entire spine and the entire body. Everything is being undulated by this simple move, if we're actually hanging out. So not only focus on the hip turn, but that basic quality of hanging out, weight underside, hanging and releasing. Let everything sink, settle. Send the mind the other way. And then focus on, can I release more? Can I hang out more? Really notice how much there is holding in, holding on. Release, release. So everything that we do, whether we're focusing on other things, we're always songing, so to speak, songing, releasing, and that's releasing down. Hanging out, releasing down. So whatever we might be doing, we can be adding that work, adding that training. Can I release? Can I release? Can I settle more? Can I sink more? And then if we do the tailbone itself, like the tailbone is, just had a cat go by, so it's like we have one of those laser pens. You're drawing a circle on the floor. Confusing the cat. So doing the tailbone circle just makes more articulation in the lower back, hips, and ball joints. But again, try to do that from a gyroscopic or a pendulum movement where you're just hanging and swinging. And send the mind the other way. And rolling the shoulders. Again, keep hanging the hips. Keep the lower back opened, because again, this will tend to create all kinds of tension everywhere. It's normal. So can I hang out while I'm doing that? Can I release, hang, drop, drop, drip, drip as I do this motion? And so then this becomes a songing, everything can turn into a song drill exercise where everything is about releasing, sinking and dropping in the midst of working the body. And let's work the knees a little bit. So forward, knees over the feet and back. Start very slow and small. And then small circles, getting bigger if it feels okay. Hand out the way. Knees out over one foot and back, knees out over the other foot. And straight forward and all the way back. Roll the hips forward to roll up. And again, just to make sure our hips are really targeting the hips. So make sure that knee is bent as you're standing on. And turning the foot left and right. That's coming from articulating the ball joint. And slowly switch. Releasing, release the abdomen. Switching again now on the ball of the foot. Again, make sure the leg you're standing on is well bent. Same motion, but now on the ball of the foot. So the knee goes left and right. And other side. Opening and releasing exercise, not a muscular exercise, opening and releasing. And then eventually it's actually through the whole body. It should undulate all the joints in the body. That takes strength to be able to hang out relaxed though. Stand here, relax and open, requires strength. Otherwise you have to be tight when you're standing. And back to the other side. And a real thorough movement is similar to what we just did, which back and forth, we just did left and right. If we do an actual kind of more of a, have an intention for a circular motion, that really gets thorough movement in the joints of the leg, especially the ball joint of the hip, and other direction. Breathe, hang out, release the abdomen. And slowly switch. Hand out the way. And bring the knee up and over. So you're getting some good movement in that ball joint. Up in front, rotate to the side. Okay, we'll do just a little bit of dong use here and definitely start minimal, very small. And start very, very slow. Replace, this is a bit subtle at first and is more advanced. Replace the physical work. Dong Yus or Tai Chi squats are kind of a good one to work with this because there's a lot of physical work involved, especially as you go deeper. Replace that physical work with breath work. And a little hint towards what that means or how that works is pressurized breath. Here. So you replace the physical muscular work with intention and breath energy. which is much more intensive. It's much more intense. It makes you not want to do many of them. And once you start doing it, just a few repetitions is very deep work. And of course, you do want to increase the repetitions as your ability and stamina mentally, energetically increases. But it's much more internally intensive than just regular muscular squats. Requires much more of you, requires much more of your spirit, requires much more towards all of you. Or just regular muscular squats, they're unpleasant enough and it's a lot of work. But what we're talking about now is something that requires much more of you inside, much more of your being, much more of your spirit. It's much more comprehensively intensive. And that's why it's alchemical. Changes things, it moves through the tissues, it moves through the structure, moves through the concretized crystal of the body. Okay. Coming up, but not releasing the internal pressure. Keeping the internal pressure. The internal fullness. Okay. Okay, let's work with this. We're down in a, I guess it's called a lunge position, or I don't know what's this one need. So we're just going to explore this and maybe some different ways. So let's actually start from here. So we're up on the balls of our feet. So not here, balls of the feet. And to contrast, because that makes things clearer, especially when these things are new, we want to sit not so aligned and proper. So slump a little bit, collapse a little bit. So it's a curve in the back. The abdomen is condensed, so slumping. Then without trying to use muscle, in fact, try not to use muscle. You're going to have to use muscle to a certain extent, yes, but intend to minimize, really minimize any movement through muscle activation. And so any movement you just do through intention, movement of intention, direction of intention, feeling. So I go from slumps and I want my spine to straighten, or more accurately to lengthen. So my spine will straighten because of the lengthening. So I let the crown of my head face directly to the ceiling. And I relax up or intend up through my spine. Or to get a little more specific, we work with putting space between the vertebrae. So if that's familiar, consciously putting space between the vertebrae, or simply relaxing up through and tending up through the spine, up through the crown of the head, so that you're lengthened and straightened through just a movement of intention, a direction of intention. And collapse again. And then straighten, not through the muscles primarily, but through the intentional vector, up through the spine, through the crown of the head. Okay, now let's coming forward, do that with the same process. I continue the length, I continue lengthening through the spine and through the crown to bring me up. And then we'll sit back down again, collapse, have yourself straightened by the lengthening vector through the spine and through the back crown of the head. And continue that vector going, continue that current going to have you pulled up. Breathe. And then once more, sitting down to the point of collapsing. We're straightened by the lengthening of that directional current, directional vector. Continue going until it pulls you up. continues to pull you up. And then up on one knee. And the same process here is lengthen from the base of the hips up through the spine, through the back, the spine, right through the back of the head. That should drop the chin ever so slightly. And let the shoulders and arms fall away, straight down, all away from what the spine and head. So a directional vector going up. The shoulders and arms falling away in the opposite direction down. Release the abdomen. Now see if you can open or put space in that hip joint that we have the weight on. And have that just add to this rising vector. Now let's come back down to here again, sitting. And you don't have to collapse, but notice that there might have been some level of collapsation, just sitting back, settling back. Maybe it's not pristinely opened and stretched. There's some level of collapsation. So from whatever level that is, we open up through the spine, through the background of the head. Continue that process so that you're lengthened up. And then we'll go to the other knee now. So other knee is the one that's posted. And then again, imagine and feel that length flowing up through the spine, through the background of the head. Let the shoulders fall away straight down. So your arms and hands are entering into the ground as the spine continues to lengthen. And see if you can have the hip joint, deep in the hip joint, that space that open to add to that current that's moving up through the spine. Release the abdomen and allow whatever release that you can find to just add to that current. Now, we're going to come up, but perhaps we're not going to come up as we often do as an exercise, coming up from here using, the leg lengthening through. And having been here for some time, it might be difficult for people to come up, or again, they don't have the strength to come up and they're going to have to hike up. So we're going to be using the hands and arms to help us up, but in a sense, not using the arms per se. We're just going to be doing the same process of opening, lengthening through the arms. And that will then lengthen, open the arms, just like we did with the spine. And that's what's going to help us stand up. So rather than triceps pushing to, most people come up like this, right? Using the triceps, using the lower back. So we're going to be using the arms, but not the arms in a sense, in that they're just going to be lengthened and opened through the arms, and that's what's going to help us up, as well as through the lengthening of the spine. So placing the hands on thigh, and that process that's happening from that hip joint up through the spine, through the back of the head, have that same process work down through the arm joints, through the shoulder joint, elbows, wrist joints. And so as I lengthen my arms and down through the leg I'm on, lengthen down and through my arms. And so what I've experienced right away with that process was coming up, my upper body and my spine specifically was extremely calm, stable. What does that mean? It's like I wasn't moving. So there wasn't any heaving, lurching, so much so that literally it's like, it was just a calm and a calming effect. How calm the spine and upper body was not only calm, it had a tremendous furthering calming effect, almost like a self-perpetuating calming effect because it was so still and calm, which again replaces what was previously thought to be needed, a contraction or lurching, heaving. So an incredible sense of poisedness, settledness, calmness. So again, just a very interesting example of how the opening, lengthening process does the work for us. And our nice phrase is strength through length. Strength through length is a very useful phrase. So everything can stay calm and relaxed rather than tumultuous. Tumultuous and aggressive, you could say, abrupt for sure, harsh. We don't notice those things, and we wouldn't use those words normally. It's only when you compare it to what's possible with this poised calmness. Then the normal stuff is quite abrupt and almost violent. It's very harsh. So there is another way, another realm. And again, in comparison to that, the normal stuff is very crude, very harsh and abrupt. So coming up, and this will again allow you to have the strength to do this a number of times if you don't have it in the leg, is you're lengthening through the shoulder joints, elbow joints, wrist joints. So lengthen through the hip, down through the leg. What we have done before when we're just coming up not using the arms, is we lengthen here, right? Lengthen here to pop us up. We lengthen here to pop us up. So do that process, but we're also now having this to aid us. So we have lengthening in multiple directions through more of the body. So that really combines together for complete support in that rising. So as I lengthen down through the front of that leg, right down to the front of the ankle and foot, and I lengthen down through my arm joints and lengthen up through my spine, through the top of my head, I don't have to do anything except that. So the only thing I have to do is those lengthening vectors. I don't have to come up. I don't have to try to come up. I don't have to do anything to come up except those lengthening vectors. And that's where this calmness is able to be discovered. So a completely different reality and experience of lurching and contracting and heaving and pulling. It's a more universal move and experience in the sense that you are expanding, you are opening, just like the universe is expanding. So on a very simple physical level, that's the harmonization with the universe, the nature of the universe, joining, harmonizing with the universe. Very, very simple physical example of that. Mm-hmm. This is pulling away from everything. Lengthening is opening to the isness of everything.
Yeah, I mean, what I notice, and it's such a hard mental task to commit to the lengthening as primary. Because is the goal driven, like I have to get up. What I notice when I can really commit to the lengthening, the geometry of the hinge in the hip, knee, and ankle simply has to arise to continue to agree with the lengthening. You know, like to stay bent and down contradicts that uplift.
Right.
And so, and it's, but my mind still goes, but there's got to be more work in there somewhere.
So I want to capitalize on a certain part of what you said there, mainly to be helpful for others, because I think this will be very helpful for others. Maybe not immediately, but working with it, it's a key. So when you said the goal of standing up, that gets in the way, absolutely. And it's hard to not, again, hike up because we have this goal of getting up. So again, this is very different than normal. So it's very foreign and strange feeling and way of using the brain and our senses. So at the very least, notice when your goal of standing up is too big. And it's at the very least, what you'll notice is, okay, I got to open, I got to stretch, I got to lengthen in order to stand up. So my goal to stand up is actually making me shirk in, shirk up, and shorten. So just noticing how this goal to stand up creates all those normal things, tightening, shortening, contracting. Just noticing how having that goal to get up there is causing all those things. So that's really good awareness. That's a great starting place. These things aren't accessible at first. They're not noticeable at first. So simply do the best you can to forget about that goal. We set the goal, otherwise we'd know what to do. But as best you can, certainly don't worry about it and make that goal secondary. If that's what we automatically do is, okay, I'm supposed to stand up. That becomes the main thing. That becomes the primary. Make that not primary. So especially once you have a little bit of a sense of what opening is, what lengthening is, because until then, again, it's all just fake it till you make it and just keep practicing and keep sincerely, if you're sincerely working on these things, even if you don't have a clue, sincerely practicing, it will be revealed. It will happen. So don't make standing up as the primary goal. So my primary goal, or my primary focus, my primary goal is how well can I lengthen and open? Lengthen and open, lengthen and open, lengthen and open. And you don't have to come up. If you got a sense of, oh, I can at least, if you simply got a sense of, oh, that helps me sit straighter and longer, better posture. That's major awareness and major progress. It's just a few steps further to have you go into movement. It's just a little bit further and more experience to have, if you can just, oh, that opens me up, makes me sit straighter. It's just a little bit more experience to have that, actually have you move and be moved. It's not much further, it just takes continuous practice. So that's a very important key thing to bring up is the goal to stand up. That's going to interfere with everything. So make that a minor goal or a goal somewhere in the back of your mind. It's just a ghost of a goal in the back of your mind. I am working on opening, lengthening through the front of the leg, up through the spine, through the crown, through the arms, 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 through the arms. Whoops, something's happening there a little bit. Well, I come up a little bit. Now I notice me contracting and then working muscularly. Replace that with just a lengthening. When you notice the contraction and normal stuff coming in, muscle stuff, replace it with lengthening again. And you get at least some of that happening for you. So that applies for whatever principle we're working on is notice when we have this end goal, I've got to get to this end position. I've got to get to the end of brush knee. I've got to get to the end to cross hands. I've got to get to the end of this movement. That's always going to dilute the experience and minimize the value of the training and the principles. It takes radical patience to hang out there and not get to the end of the movement or end of the objective. It takes radical patience, a different kind of mind. But that's much more potent and fertile. That's where the principles will come alive to you and for you, where you will experience these things from the inside, is when you can wait, when you can wait and not do. Only when you can wait, so long as we're doing, it's too busy and too loud for us to notice these inner principles and for them to come up for us. And then they can become stronger. If we're doing, it's too loud, it's too noisy. We can't hear the silence when the room is loud. So the waiting and to work on the one or two things we're working on. Focus on that and the waiting, waiting, waiting. That's where things can be revealed, because that's when it's quiet enough for things to be revealed. Doing is too noisy. The goal out here where I'm going to go is too obtuse. It's going to occlude everything else. So this is a really a good example, good experience, because I think it's quite a drastically obvious thing for me to stand up. It takes some effort, some muscular work. So this is a really good particular exercise to contrast between muscular work and something else getting the same work done for us. So I don't have to really stand up. I don't have to get up. That's not the biggest thing in the world. And I'm going to soften that goal. I'm going to dilute that goal almost so it disappears. It's just in the back of the mind. I'm going to do the lengthening, opening process, lengthening and those different parts, opening, lengthening, until the start of something begins to happen. So at the very least, I notice I'm taller here. And if I can open up a bit more, now don't be afraid to let some muscular work come in. You can't do everything purely, you can't do anything purely at once in the beginning. So you can allow a little bit of muscular work to come in for sure, but try to replace that with the opening process, stretching, lengthening process as much as you can. So at least you have the conscious awareness that you're adding lengthening quality to the muscular work. That's good work. Lengthen, lengthen, open, open, lengthen, 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 open, open. Open those arms, open those shoulder joints, open those elbow joints. You should feel increased pressure in your leg because the arms are lengthening, opening, lengthening. If I stay with that, I'm driven up. Okay, so try to take this feeling into movement. If we do just a little bit of serving tea, can I just open and lengthen through the body to cause the movement? Not unlike the Danyus, the squats that we did earlier. It's all this inner work, inner pressure, in this case, inner lengthening. No movement, no physical movement, no muscular movement. I'm just lengthening, opening, lengthening, and releasing or pressing down can be a good trigger for lengthening, or at the very least, just whatever you can touch with your awareness to lengthen. Whatever you can relate to right now, lengthen, open, and have that do some of the movement. And then we went that through the whole set, through all the movements. Now let's just come back to some good breathing. See if we can keep that sense of presence in our body to keep us open and lengthened. Opening, lengthening, allowance. Allowing and opening, lengthening. We didn't know that's possible until we hear about it, we know about it. I don't have to be condensed.